We are very grateful to Travelport for supporting this event. Thank you for your impressive speech and your presentation.
Thank you so much.
It was on the major digitalization trends in air travel. So can you share with us what are these main trends that we must know?
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting us here. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a very good conference, I have to say. And Russia is a very important market for us, Russia and the neighboring CIS countries. Because also Russia and the neighboring CIS countries are currently affected by what is called Industry 4.0 or digitalization. It's everywhere, it's all the time, and of course it also applies to Russia, it applies to the area here. What are the general trends talking about aviation and digitalization? That's hard to say because it's a whole shift in paradigm. But what I think is most interesting is that the passenger, the customer itself is more and more the focal point of all activities. So it is all about having the passenger communication, passenger information, owning the passenger, knowing about the preferences of a passenger, and actually continuous engagement with the passenger, with the customer of an airline.
Thanks a lot. So how do you think airlines respond to these trends that you just mentioned in world and in Russia specifically?
Airlines are somehow also, because of regulatory reasons, always a little bit, how shall I say, sometimes they're a little bit slow in these areas. So the digitalization, as I mentioned it before, is something which is not completely new. So when you go into the whole e-business market, into Amazon.com, for instance, there are things which have already been on the market and which have proven to become quite successful. Airlines are now actually adapting these trends also, for instance, in their own way, how they interact and communicate with customers, how they distribute. Several examples, and IATA is very active in this area. So airlines are still pretty much built around, from their business process, built around a trip, a single trip with a P&R, you fly from A to B, and it's somehow a single event. While the e-commerce industry actually moves in a completely different direction, where you have a complete 360-degree view. And IATA, for instance, is addressing this with offer order management with NDC, and I'm sure we will also speak about NDC during this conversation. And therefore, the slight delays airlines have once in a while can also be an advantage for airlines once in a while, because they see how other industries have worked with it, what has worked, what has not worked, and so airlines can really make use of a best-of-breed approach.
Thanks. Obviously, the airlines are very slow.
Not very slow. a bit slower sometimes than other industries. But there is not the airline. I mean, there are numerous airlines. You have really airlines with a very, very high pace. And then you have the traditional network carrier, which are also complex organizations. And so I think we must fully appreciate that you cannot change an industry where safety always comes first. You cannot change an industry overnight.
Thanks. So about the NDC and GDS. How fast can NDC replace GDS, if it really shall happen at all? And how will that affect the OTA's role in the distribution market?
So, if I knew how fast the one substitutes the other, I'd be very, very happy. First of all, it's not a black and white situation. It's not a big bang that the one thing will be switched off overnight and be replaced by the other thing. There is a GDS business, and there will also be a GDS business in the future. Will we call it GDS business, or is it really more about content aggregation, because that's the core of what the GDS actually does? That's something to be debated. So what I'm saying is there will always be the need for content aggregation. NDC in itself is a very important thing, and NDC is happening, but NDC in the end is nothing more than a stack of protocols on how to communicate, but it enables everybody in the industry, more or less, to communicate with everybody. But the move towards a completely NDC-driven distribution does not come overnight. It does not come in all segments of the industry overnight. It does not come in all geographies overnight. It is really a highly differentiated thing. So I think the trick for an airline is to be able to consume content through NDC, for instance, while also being able to consume or to have content and distribute content through traditional channels, so that you have your content from different sources, from multi-sources at the same time. And Travelport is very active in this area through our approach of multi-source content, where the industry still needs aggregation, but it does not necessarily need to be the old grandfather's traditional legacy channel. It will also be new channels, and we are going ahead and embarking on this one with numerous network carriers who have actually understood that it's not a black and white situation, it's a continuum, it's a continuous process. And it reminds me a little bit of the story that IBM once said, that we will move to the paperless office with all the computers, and it hasn't happened. So there will be always both. The question is then, in which relation do they stand, and how are airlines able to make use of both? And we as Travelport, we are actually perfectly positioned for this through our multi-source content strategy. And we don't regard NDC as a threat, not at all. It's also a business opportunity for us, it's a chance. And let me also state here that we have already been level 3 compliant when it comes to NDC as the first one, the only one of the traditional GDSs. So it's not a threat, it's a big opportunity, not only for us, but for the whole industry.
Okay, so how do you think, how fast NDC will be implemented by Russian and CIS airlines?
You know, when you speak about Russian and CIS airlines, you speak about a whole universe, about a whole globe in itself. Yeah? You have, especially in Russia, very modern, super professional airlines, and they'll probably be faster than other airlines, especially when it comes to international markets. And then in some of the CIS countries, things will take a little bit slower because also the behavior of the consumers is a different one. So there is not a one-fits-it-all answer, but what I think what we will see in Russia and its neighboring CIS countries is what we see everywhere on the world. It's not a big bang thing. It is really something which will come continuously. It will come, but it will be differentiated in the area of Russia and CIS, especially by countries, by geographies, and by business models. Russia has its own specialities, also when it comes to direct distributions, but I think this is even also a motivation for the Russian market to get something done, because here in Russia people are already used and know how to distribute in different manners.
Which CIS countries might be especially interesting to Travelport?
Well, luckily I have to say we have huge interest from more or less most of the CIS countries. But there are CIS countries now besides Russia, yeah, which are very open, have a very active program towards attracting tourism from all other countries where people are traveling. So it's hard to make a special, name a special country now, but for instance, whenever I'm in Kazakhstan, just as an example, I'm very impressed on how things are going there, how fast things are actually working there. And I can name numerous of those countries. But you are the local, you know your neighbors probably much better than I do, and you know there are countries which are very fast and further advanced for the region they are in, and then there are some countries who may still need a little bit longer, and that's also something we see in air transport, that's also something we see when it comes to distribution, and that's also something we see when it comes to content aggregation and or NDC.
Which latest technologies does Travelport implement, and how do airlines benefit from it?
So Travelport, as probably one of the larger IT service providers, implements new technologies. That's our core business in the end all the time. So maybe I can talk about three things which come up in my mind right now. The first thing we already spoke is our approach to NDC, new distribution, through multi-source content. that we enable an airline to make use of everything which is available in the market through the more traditional channels, but also through the more API-driven means to distribute. The second big area we are actually very active in is when it comes to mobile. Mobile is probably the main channel of engagement with the actual passenger, and Travelport plays a very important role. With our Travelport digital offering, we are supplying not only mobile solutions, but the whole paradigm about customer interaction, communicating with your customer, engaging, prediction of what the customer wants to numerous leading carriers in the world. So that's the second biggest area between, or that's the second area between what we have in the area of multi-source content and what we have in the area with mobile. And the third area is that, interestingly, we have been speaking about digitalization and e-commerce over the past years, sometimes even decades, but there are still processes in an airline which somehow haven't changed. Somehow change just went by and nothing happened. And I'm referring here in special or in detail to flight disruption. While there are numerous solutions for rebooking passengers from one flight to the other flight in case of a disruption, we see that there is a very, very big gap for airlines, for passengers, for hotels, when it comes to rebooking passengers into hotel rooms in case a passenger cannot be rebooked, for instance, at the same day. And that's a process, if you think about this, and I hope that you have not experienced it by yourself, that's a process which indeed has not changed a lot over the past 30 to 40 years. And this is now a good example to show the power of innovation we actually have within Travelport. So we took this process based with the mobile technology we have, based with the touch points we have into customers, into airlines, into hotels. We have just launched a product now which will provide a seamless customer excellence experience in case of flight disruptions when it comes to rebooking passengers into hotels. Just a silly example, you sit in a big aircraft, let's say an A380, it's 350 people, and your flight is disrupted. Your flight is cancelled, you cannot be rebooked. How is it taking place right now? Everybody runs to the irregularity desk, is getting a voucher for a hotel. People at the irregularity desk are trying to secure hotel rooms. It's a highly fragmented, non-seamless manual process, which causes big frustration, not only for the passenger, also for the staff at the airport, for the airline itself. The solution we have launched is a complete seamless end-to-end process where, again, same scenario, a flight is disrupted, all 350 passengers need to be rebooked into a hotel. And we make use of mobile. So the airline will be able to push hotel content on an individual base to each passenger so that the passenger on his or her mobile device can immediately book a hotel either at its own expense or at the expense of the airline, differentiated by tier level of the customer, by customer value, by booking class, get immediately a booking reconfirmation, enriched with numerous other functionalities like individual ground transportation. Ground transportation as a group can move seamlessly into the hotel where hotel has already pre-populated passenger information. So it's a process which increases even during the bad time of an disruption. It even increases during the bad time of a disruption customer satisfaction. And that's just one of the numerous examples of what we have been developing at Travelport.
Oh, perfect, thank you. So the last question is, we have changed the format of the conference. We moved from specific focus of IT in aviation to digitalization for airlines and everything. Can you please share your opinion on the agenda, on the audience, your general impression?
So I have participated at this conference over the past years, and I have to say it has always been a very, very good conference. Congratulations to the organizers, with very good speeches, very good customer interaction, but also the interaction between airlines among themselves without all the suppliers being around all the time. And it's very interesting that you mentioned that you've changed the format again to the positive for this conference. And you yourself referred actually to digitalization in this area. While when we started our conversation, you were asking how is digitalization going in this part of Europe, in this part of the globe. And I think you gave the answer by yourself, by already anticipating that you need to make use of the opportunity when it comes to digitalization and change the conference format. And all I can do is congratulate you to this one. It's a very good format. It really gains lots of interest from the airlines because there is something going on. Airlines need to embark, they need to work with it, they need to get their information, they need to see how others do it, how suppliers are proposing to do it, they need to learn what flies and what does not fly. And I think your conference is a perfect platform for this. Really, congratulations.
Thank you very much.